We're a quarter of a century into the new millennium and have been blessed with some amazing fight scenes so far. That's why today we're suiting up, strapping in, and unleashing the claws, webs, and power gauntlets as we give you the top 25 superhero movie fights from 2000 to 2024. Kicking off our list is a fight that proved superhero movies could be edgy, violent, and frankly, pretty freaky weird. Here, Logan squares off against Mystique in a shape-shifting display that gave audiences a taste of what mutant battles could look like on the big screen. It's set in the bowels of the Statue of Liberty because nothing says America like mutants punching each other inside a national landmark. Anyway, this fight was more than just an action set piece. It showcased Wolverine's feral combat style against Mystique's acrobatic, deceptive, and somewhat captivating moves. One minute she's Wolverine himself, and the next she's flipping through the air with kicks that would make even Black Widow jealous. Also, here's a fun fact for you. Rebecca Romaine spent up to 9 hours a day getting painted head to toe in blue body paint and prosthetics to play Mystique. I mean, that's some serious dedication. So the next time you complain about your morning routine, just remember that it could be worse.
I will be the one.
Okay, this one may not technically be a superhero movie, but when you've got Jet Li fighting Jet Li in a sci-fi multiversal showdown, it still fits within the qualification requirements, doesn't it? The one sees Gabe Law facing off against his evil alternate self U-Law in a final fight that's a glorious early 2000s mashup of wire-fu and industrial new metal. The fight takes place in a grimy power plant where gravity-defying kicks and air flips are served up like a Hong Kong action flick's greatest hits reel. Want to know something crazy? Jet Li originally turned down Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon to make this. Well, maybe not as critically acclaimed, this scene gave us a final fight so over the top that it makes Dragon Ball Z battles look pale in comparison. Also, bonus points for the ending, yeah? Where U-Law's exiled to a prison planet and immediately starts fighting everyone. Bro's nothing if not consistent. The early 2000s, they were a simpler time, weren't they? When superhero movies were finding their footing and Tobey Maguire's tearful eyes were our emotional compass before turning into a meme. In Spider-Man's climactic showdown, Peter Parker faces off against the Green Goblin in a battle that's part Halloween horror and part personal family drama. With the setting of a half-demolished building, this fight gets down and dirty real quick. It's pretty raw with brick walls, bloody knuckles, and one goblin glider with serious impalement issues. What makes this fight truly stand out isn't just the action, but the emotional stakes here. Norman Osborn is kinda like Peter's surrogate father figure, so his taunts do hit that bit harder throughout the battle. He also gave us a pretty hilarious meme in the process.
Peter, stop! Stop! It's me!
I also read somewhere that William Dafoe did a lot of his own stunts in that insane Green Goblin suit. Imagine fighting in a full Metal Power Ranger cosplay while delivering Shakespearean monologues. Absolute legend.
Oh.
Talk about opening a movie with a bang. This one opened the X-Men sequel by teleporting directly into our brains and sticking there forever. When Nightcrawler invades the White House to assassinate the president like it's no big deal, what unfolds is one of the coolest, most inventive superhero action scenes of the early 2000s. It's got teleportation smoke, balletic combat, and a classical music score. Bro's parents must be so proud. The choreography makes Nightcrawler look like a supernatural ninja on fast forward, taking out Secret Service agents like their cardboard cutouts. What's wild is that director Bryan Singer shot this entire sequence without showing a single drop of blood, which proves you don't need gore to make something intense and unforgettable. A lot of work went into this too, with the sequence taking 4 months to storyboard and pre-visualize due to the complexity of the teleportation effects. And yes, Alan Cumming really did wear those sharp little fangs the whole time. Bro probably wanted to feel like Blade.
Hang on! Regent!
It's back-to-back TV Regent classics now as we witness the greatest sequence from the Raimi trilogy. If there's one scene that made grown men in Spidey pajamas cheer in theaters, it's definitely this one. Here our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man takes on Dr. Octopus on top of, beside and inside a speeding New York City train. Sam Raimi really was in his bag here as the fight was equal parts thrilling, heartfelt and mildly terrifying. The practical effects here were truly astonishing. Yeah, those train car sets were built on gimbals and the actors dangled from wires in front of actual moving city backdrops. The crowning moment is obviously when a mask-free Spidey stops the train using every fibre of his strength in his face. Did you know that Tobey Maguire reportedly injured his back during shooting, which ironically mirrors Peter's back joke later in Spider-Man 3? I suppose art really does imitate life, eh? When Christopher Nolan rebooted The Dark Knight, he swapped neon paint and cheesy lines for gritty realism and ninja sorcery. The climactic battle between Bruce Wayne and his old mentor turned nemesis Ra's al Ghul is like a philosophical cherry on top of a film about fear, justice, and how not to die in a collapsing train. Inside Gotham's speeding monorail, any fight would need clever choreography, quick reversals, and some excellent one-liners. Our boy Batman's still learning the whole fighting bad guys while wearing 30 pounds of Kevlar way of life, but he still puts in a show against the League of Shadows' deadliest assassin. With the eventual victory, the student not only took on his master, but also overcame him, although with some questionable technicalities on morality. I was really thinking of using something from Constantine or Fantastic Four at first, but then I was like, nah, who the heck's gonna give a miss to the freaking Batman?
Bobby, think you can take out your old friend?
Not a lot of competition in 2006, so this one was an easy pick. Yeah, The Last Stand gets a bad rap most of the time, but this elemental showdown still delivered the mutant goods. Childhood frenemies Pyro and Iceman finally come to blows during the film's Mutant War finale, and it's basically Avatar: The Last Airbender if everyone was perpetually pissed. Pyro's flames and Bobby Drake's ice let loose in a visual effects bonanza that had kids everywhere arguing about whether fire or ice was cooler. You know, for some fans, this was a long-awaited payoff since the two had been foreshadowed as rivals since X2. But yeah, Iceman was like a level 100 Pokemon against Pyro being a starter-level Charmander. Not that I'm complaining though, comic book lovers would know that Iceman is a serious threat if we actually consider his true power levels.
You never should have left.
Flint Marko.
What do you want from me?
Kids were allowed to see this movie, but fights like the subway battle really make me question that decision. Having said that, the fight is pure Raimi magic. It's gritty, weirdly violent, and features more sand than a 4th grade science project. In this scene, the symbiote spider hunts Flint Marko through underground tunnels, leading to a showdown that feels more like a horror movie. Spidey's more brutal than usual thanks to that snazzy alien goo, and the fight choreography emphasises Sandman's abilities in all their weird glory. The effects are also pretty impressive, especially when Bro turns into a giant tidal wave of grit. Now, here's a fun fact for you. Actor Thomas Hayden Church bulked up for the role by adding 28 pounds of muscle, only to realise that most of his fight scenes would be as a CGI sand monster. I mean, that's disappointing, but at least our man had dedication, didn't he? Also, Peter literally drowns a dude in mud here. Not sure if that should be on the CV of a friendly neighbourhood Spider-Man. So Iron Man and The Dark Knight released in the same year, but this one was way too brutal to ignore. Before Mark Ruffalo made Bruce Banner goofy and awkward, The Incredible Hulk gave us Edward Norton as a much angrier, much greener gamma monster. And while the movie tends to get outdone in MCU conversations, its climactic brawl between Hulk and the spooky abomination is a chaotic, messy monster mash which is totally worth remembering. Set in the streets of Harlem, this is the definition of a heavyweight slugfest. It's literally two CGI titans throwing cars like dodgeballs, smashing through buildings like they're made of cheap wood, and delivering the kind of hits you'd feel in your molars. Of course, our boy wins with amazing aura, as he rightfully should. It's also one of the MCU's grittiest fights, as Hulk improvises his weapons mid-battle, including using a cop car as boxing gloves. Absolute cinema, if you ask me. Either this or using something with fake Deadpool, so I suppose you know what I went with, right? Watchmen might be one of the most nihilistic superhero movies ever made, and it announces its tone right away with this grim, brutal fight. When the morally bankrupt comedian is ambushed by the super genius Ozymandias in his own apartment, what unfolds is a fight scene that's as slick as it is disturbing. There's no witty banter or heroic quips. Just two aging costume vigilantes wrecking a living room like two dads arguing over fantasy football. The choreography is crisp as the slow-motion Snyder displays are in full effect, and every punch feels like it could break the sound barrier. You know, Jeffrey Dean Morgan actually broke a fake window pane on set with his elbow during filming, and while it was safety glass, bro was a bit shaken by the experience.
No! Take cover, John!
Damn, both the Iron Man movies so far have been beaten on this list, but hey, Kick-Ass deserves its moment to shine, doesn't it? If the film has taught us anything, it's that pint-sized vigilantes wielding butterfly knives are both adorable and terrifying. In the film's standout sequence, the extremely young Hit Girl infiltrates a gang hideout to rescue her mentor, Big Daddy, and proceeds to completely demolish a room full of armed goons. Set to the upbeat strains of Joan Jett's Bad Reputation, because, well, why not? This is a glorious ballet of gunplay, acrobatics, and colourful profanity. Chloe Grace Moretz was only 13 at the time and trained for months to pull off the waifu stunts, many of which she actually performed herself. And then there's me, who was dominating God of War on the PlayStation as my most incredible feat at that age.
Show's over, mother.
It takes a special kind of talent to beat the likes of Captain America and Thor from 2011, but if anyone can do it, it's Nicolas freaking Cage. Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance might be cinematic chaos, but it delivers one of the most unhinged, Nick Cage-fueled supernatural brawls you'll ever see. In the film's finale, Johnny Blaze's demon biker faces off against Rourke, aka the freaking devil, and his decaying henchmen in a showdown that's way too metal to even explain. Ghost Rider uses everything from hellfire chain whips to straight-up vehicular manslaughter, and the visual effects lean into over-the-top madness. There's a scene where he literally turns a giant mining vehicle into a flaming death machine. Is it practical? No. But is it awesome? Absolutely. I heard that Nicolas Cage insisted on doing some of his own stunts while wearing a motion capture suit covered in reflective balls and face paint meant to look like a flaming skull. And yet, this somehow wasn't the weirdest thing he did that week. The Dark Knight Rises had some crazy fights, but there's not a lot that can top an Avengers group fight. Ladies and gentlemen, this truly was the fight that changed superhero movies forever. When Earth's mightiest heroes finally assembled on the big screen, they did so in epic fashion, defending New York from the Chitauri invasion led by Loki, armed with a scepter, daddy issues, and an enviable hairdo. This fight's got everything. The Hulk smashing giant space worms, Iron Man zipping through skyscrapers, Captain America leading civilians to safety, Black Widow literally stealing alien weapons, and Hawkeye, well, Hawkeye's doing the best he can do, alright? The iconic shot of the Avengers fighting as a team was so good that it basically sold 100 million future MCU tickets. You just had to be there. Man, what I wouldn't give to have this kind of experience once again. If you ever wanted to see what would happen if two Kryptonians turned a city into their personal WWE arena, well, Man of Steel delivered that in abundance. When Superman faces off against General Zod in Metropolis, the result is a bone-crunching, skyscraper-shattering fight that left audiences divided and insurance companies sweating. Say what you want about the collateral damage, but this fight marked the first time a Superman movie cut Clark Kent loose. Zod's brutal military precision clashes with Kal-El's raw power, resulting in orbital punches and one very controversial neck snap. I guess that's what happens when you get too involved in crypto. Get it? Because it's like cryptocurrency, you know? Oh, forget it. Alright, anyway, forget that, okay? I really wonder how much they'd charge Superman if he was willing to foot the bill for the damages. He definitely would have been able to pay that off with a 9-to-5 job now, would he? ...2014 gave us quite a bit, you know, the Amazing Spider-Man, the Guardians of the Galaxy, heck, even X-Men Days of Future Past. However, only one of those movies had a scene that became immortalized as a meme. If you ever wanted to see Captain America single-handedly beat up a dozen muscle bros in an elevator without breaking a sweat, The Winter Soldier is the masterclass that you're looking for. This isn't a flashy, city-leveling battle, but it's actually rather claustrophobic and so tense you can basically hear the muscles flexing. What stands out to me even now is the casual dropping of the line, "Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?"
Does anyone want to get out?
Before throwing hands with a group of Hydra double agents crammed into a tiny metal box. What follows is a perfectly choreographed mix of martial arts, shield bounces and body slams that turn the elevator into a human blender. Man, it couldn't have been easy to shoot this at all. It's top 10 time, and we've got Veronica doing all kinds of flexing here. This is a fight so destructive, it could double as a Demolition Company's highlight reel. Tony Stark busts out his anti-Hulk contingency plan, the Hulkbuster suit, when Bruce Banner goes full rage mode under the Scarlet Witch's influence. What follows is pure, unfiltered chaos. Watching Veronica throw down with an enraged Hulk is like seeing Godzilla wrestle a sentient skyscraper. Buildings crumble, roads collapse, and Tony even buys time by punching Hulk through an office full of terrified employees. The go-to-sleep line really had me cracking up, and I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't even in the script when they first started shooting the scene.
Go to sleep, go to sleep.
This was also probably the last time we got to see a Hulk who was so angry. Bro slowly started turning into a McDonald's softie after that.
You have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude!
The main rivalry of 2016 was between Captain America Civil War and Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. Just like the box office results, the airport battle also overtook anything else its rival had to offer. This really was the superhero showdown that we didn't know we desperately needed. I mean, it gave us Ant-Man turning into Giant Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man debuting in the MCU, and Hawkeye making arrow jokes in the middle of an international incident. It's pretty straightforward. You've got two squads of heroes facing off on a deserted tarmac, and it's everything you could ask for. Power combos, clever quips, Iron Man drop-kicking Cap, and Spidey awakening the nerd within him whenever he could. The Russo brothers masterfully balanced character moments with high-octane action, and the choreography turns a flat airport runway into a battlefield of pure comic book joy.
Now! Oh, come on!
I thought superhero fights were all about flashy CGI and alien invasions until Logan said, "Hold my adamantium beer." In what we thought was Hugh Jackman's final turn as Wolverine, the gritty, grounded violence reached a new peak in a brutal showdown against the Reavers, who are essentially a gang of cybernetic mercenaries dumb enough to corner an aging mutant berserker and his equally lethal mini-me. The sequence is equally as vicious as it is heartbreaking, because even though Logan is super badass here, he's still beaten down by age and trauma. Anyway, it was great to see his rage once more, that too after teaming up with X-23, who's a perfect match for his character. I know this isn't the last we saw of Wolverine, especially after the events of 2024, but it definitely affected me in ways I never knew I could feel.
Piece of cake, Quill. Yeah, if your goal was to piss him off.
Thanos was hyped up for a reason, and Infinity War was just the Russo brothers telling us why they did that with tons of examples. The most notable one was the attack on Titan, which might not be as intense as the anime series, but definitely got crowds roaring all over the world. We see Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and the Guardians desperately throwing everything they had at the Mad Titan, and for a hot second it almost worked, but then Star-Lord happened, didn't he? This fight stands out for its insane strategy and teamwork. I mean, you've got Spider-Man web-slinging through portals, Star-Lord using his jet boots mid-air, and Doctor Strange unleashing what can only be described as 1,500 copies of himself doing jazz hands. You know, Benedict Cumberbatch learned over 45 distinct hand gestures for Strange's spells, because if you're going to fight a giant purple space warlord, you might as well look stylish while you're doing it.
Avengers!
Well, you could have Oscar winners competing for this spot too, but I still wouldn't pick anything other than the epic finale of the MCU's decade of dominance. Plus, it's only fair to follow Little Bro, i.e. Infinity War, with Big Bro, aka Endgame. It's the fight to end all fights, quite literally too. After the build-up, Endgame delivered a final battle so epic that it made the previous airport fight look like a bar crawl. Every hero you've ever loved charges into battle against Thanos' army in a spectacle of portals, hammer throws, and one very satisfying Avengers Assemble. It may have been the most expensive MCU film ever made, but it does more than earn that title.
No, give me that. You have the little one.
This one.
The 2020 slowed down with the superhero output, with the most notable releases being DC films during this year. I sure as heck ain't covering the Wonder Woman sequel, so here's a look at Harley Quinn being Harley Quinn. Like, who needs superpowers when you've got glitter bombs, baseball bats, and sheer unfiltered chaos? Birds of Prey gave us one of the most stylistic fight sequences in recent memory as Harley Quinn storms a police station like a one-woman wrecking crew. This scene is pure candy-coated anarchy, which is on brand for Margot Robbie here. Harley struts in with a confetti cannon that launches beanbags and glitter, then proceeds to beat, flip, and flex her way through half of Gotham's underworld and law enforcement. The fight choreography is a glorious mix of slapstick stunt work and a soundtrack so good it deserves its own Spotify playlist. It's really funny that this movie came out in the same year as Nobody, and both of these films have standout bus fights. Of course, only one of them is a superhero film, so Shang-Chi takes the cake here, despite No Way Home also releasing in the same year. You know your movie is about to snap when the hero's coming out party is a bone-snapping martial arts throwdown on a runaway city bus. Shang-Chi didn't just introduce a new MCU hero, it reminded audiences that hand-to-hand combat could be exhilarating without needing a single alien invasion. Yeah, I know that's a bit ironic considering the movie ends with freaking dragons. Anyway, the scene's choreography is a loving nod to Jackie Chan's classic stunt work, with Simu Liu flipping, dodging, and kicking through tight quarters while dodging knives, poles, and physics itself. I've ignored everything else in favour of Robert Pattinson and his eyeliner. If The Dark Knight was James Bond with a cape, Then the Batman turned Bruce Wayne into a vengeful horror movie monster with a liking to goth elements. In this pulsating finale, the Caped Crusader takes on Riddler's army of goons armed with rifles and sad fan forums. Batman tears through the masked wannabes in a fight that's brutal, visceral, and one of the most grounded in superhero cinema. I still don't know what Bro had in that serum, but I think it's better off being left to the imagination. The only notable contender for this spot was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, but since it's a sequence in a hallway, the Guardians of the Galaxy takes the cake for me. After all, anything that reminds me of Oldboy is an automatic W and some unwanted trauma. James Gunn really outdid himself here with one of the slickest, most kinetic hallway brawls ever put to screen. It was great seeing unlovable space delinquents charging down a corridor filled with monstrous henchmen armed with everything from swords to rocket-powered raccoons, all synced to the pulse-pounding beat of the Beastie Boys' No Sleep Till Brooklyn. 2024 was so dry when it came to good superhero movies that I was actually considering using the My Hero Academia anime film at number 1. Then I remembered that Deadpool and Wolverine fought an entire Deadpool army and then changed my mind. The Merc with a Mouth and Canada's angriest export team up to take on an army of alternate universe Deadpools, which is just as ridiculous as you'd expect it to be. Yeah, variants armed with everything from katanas to chimichangas is all you need to have a blast in this extremely gory yet highly enjoyable sequence. It's a savage, bloody and beautifully choreographed spectacle with claws, quips and decapitations at your disposal. Hope you liked the video, please subscribe to the TV Regent, and here's another video that I know you're going to enjoy.